The following podcast is provided by an approved senior care provider on the Answers for Elders radio network. And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders radio on this amazing month of December. I can't believe that the month is actually happening, and we are now in our first weekend of the month, and I am sitting back thinking to myself, wow, where has 2021 gone? To so many of us, we've been in a situation where we've kind of been in a holding pattern. But we've lost, I think the latest statistics of COVID-19 deaths have been around 9,000 people in the state of Washington. As we look back at the last 2 years of what we've all been through, a lot of us in the state have lost loved ones, but a lot of us also are in a situation. I'm getting calls a lot from our listeners saying things like, my loved one, they had COVID, but they're having some extra issues now because of it, because their system was weakened. And those are things that we obviously are concerned about, because there is going to be, sadly, some more after effect of what has happened during the pandemic. And as a result, I am so honored that we have a very special guest that's going to talk to us today about, a subject that's really difficult for so many of us to talk about, and that is the end of life. It is looking at the end of somebody's life, and how do you as a family member support them as they make that transition to the afterlife. And we are very honored today to have Cassidy Bastien with us. And Cassidy is an end of life doula, and we're going to find out a little bit about what that is. But Cassidy has been a wonderful friend of mine for a very long time. Cassidy has an amazing Facebook group for those of you that are caring for a loved one. I strongly encourage you, if you're a member of Facebook and you're looking for support online, she has a group called Caregivers Hub Support Group. So if you look that up on Facebook, I've been in that group for a long time, and they're what an active, amazing group. So Cassidy Bastien, welcome to Answers for Elders Radio.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Suzanne. It's so great to be here with you finally after all of this time.
I know. I've been chasing you down for like months, and if not years. And I'm going, yeah. Cassidy, and thank you too for having these conversations, because, I always say that people like you are angels, and because you are there that can help someone in the difficult times where most of our family members are, we don't really know how to advocate for that person that we love, that we care for, that we want, and especially if it's a parent, there's that parent-child dynamic. And I would like to take this very first segment and have you kind of share with us overall, what usually happens between adult children and, let's say, a parent that is passing away, and what is the process?
So that is a loaded little capsule.
That's why we have a whole segment on it. Yeah.
Because, I've been a certified nurse's aide for 19 years. I've been an end of life doula for 2. I've been working in hospice and palliative care for 5. So I understood very, very early in my career that the dynamics between the people that I was caring for and their family members were very much that we have these caregivers who have sacrificed almost everything that they have to care for their loved ones.
Very much
it becomes their identity. It becomes who they are. It becomes their purpose in life. And so when we see that our loved one is declining to the point of, we're approaching end of life, and there's a lot of education that needs to be done around that, because a lot of the times we are really weeks, if not months, away from death, and we haven't had these conversations, and we haven't even allowed ourselves to entertain the thought that this pillar of our life is not going to be here. And there's so much that comes with that. So what I see at end of life a lot of times is denial about what's happening, what's going to happen. And people oftentimes choose not to talk about death and dying and what
Mhm.
their loved ones' wishes are, because they seem to feel like if we talk about death, it's we are inviting that to come,
Sure.
and that if we talk about it, it means somebody is going to die. And of
Yeah.
course, I'm of the philosophy that the minute we're born and the minute we take our first breath, every breath we are taking towards our last.
Mhm. Mhm.
We are not going to be here forever. And
No.
so I see a lot of denial between family caregivers and their loved ones, whether that's,
Very much so. And,
yeah,
Cassidy, what you're saying is so true because I can relate to my own stories.
right,
When I had lost both my parents, first of all, my father lived till the ripe old age of 88. But yet there was a part of me that thought he was never going to die. Right.
right,
And even when I remembered like the last weekend that he was still alive, it's like, well, I was going to an Easter thing. And it's like, there was just a part of me that was all of a sudden thinking to myself, oh, he'll be fine. I didn't really get it. Right. And so when
right.
he was at the very end, it's like I'm driving down, he was in Vancouver, Washington, and my stepmom kept calling me. He's not going to be with us much longer. Where are you? How, and all of these things. And I remember after, luckily I got there in time and I was able to be there with him for the last couple hours of his life. But I think to myself, it was so irresponsible of me not to take that weekend and go be with dad. But there
Right.
was just this thing within me that had this denial. And I think that this is what's normal with families. This is what I see in many cases. Is that not correct?
Absolutely. 100%. And I mean, so I lost my father at the age of 66 almost 2 years ago, non-COVID related. And I myself, given all of my experience and my knowledge and walking other people home every single day, I myself had my own denial.
Mhm.
I didn't start the Medicaid, process. I should have started it in August, and I didn't start it until October.
Yeah. Isn't that
So
interesting?
I mean, it's just one of those things where no matter how prepared you are, we can have all of these conversations, but until we get in that wave of
Mhm.
end of life and that roller coaster, and we start living that and experiencing that,
Mhm.
even as professionals, we just
Mhm.
have to take everything that's thrown our way and do the best
Sure.
that we can with
Sure. And obviously
it.
having those conversations with a loved one if they're in that denial phase. I mean,
Oh,
as
completely.
an adult child, I guess what is your opinion on how to have the hard conversations if they are in denial?
Well, I think that so the first thing to think about and to understand about the death and dying process is that our culture doesn't normalize it. First of all,
Mhm.
we've gone from this culture where people were set up in the parlor and
Yeah.
they were cared for in their homes until they died. Their after death care was provided in their homes. Their wakes and their funerals were in their homes. So we have gone to a culture that does not want to talk about death and
No, we
dying.
don't.
And so having those conversations are hard. And sometimes, unfortunately, it does end up having to be that kind of that slap in the face of reality that
Mhm.
this is where we are and there's literally no going back here.
Right.
And sometimes that's weeks, sometimes that's
Right.
hours, sometimes that's days. And if we're lucky, that is months to
Yeah.
prepare for that.
And to have those conversations that are difficult. And I know, I remember a really, poignant moment with my mother, and it happened. It was a blessing. But we had been to a funeral with someone else, and we went to lunch, and my mother ordered a martini. And so she wasn't feeling any pain. And I just said, what I said to her is, Mom, that was a really nice service, and I think about sometimes, how can I do right by you? Is what I said to her. How can I honor you at the end of your life if that's what you want? And I was shocked what she said. It
Yeah,
was like I realized what she wanted. And then I said, maybe what we should do is set those up in advance. And so she prepaid everything. And it was due to that one little thing. And then when
Right.
I learned about the cost of funerals
Oh
and
my.
how it's like, is it true that the cost of a funeral doubles every like 3 to 4 years?
Yeah, I would say on average, a traditional funeral right now runs between 12, 11, like between 10 and $12,000 for a traditional funeral at this point in
Unbelievable.
time. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So so the thing is that to have an option where, she paid it so much a month, so it
Right.
was done in over 6 years, it was paid off.
Perfect.
And it wasn't a burden, and the other beauty I always say is one of the greatest gifts she ever gave me at the end of her life is all I had to do is make a phone call. It was
Me
all handled.
too. Me too. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And I think that that literally is the thing. We have to get to a point where we are not afraid to sit down and actually ask the people
Mhm.
that we love, okay, what do you want? I
Right.
mean, I literally had the same conversations with my dad, and it was just kind
Yeah.
of, what do you want? And I was so grateful. And you're absolutely right that my dad gave me that gift of pre-planning, of allowing
Absolutely.
me to do that. So all I had to do was
Absolutely.
make a phone call too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and so now as we're going into the next segment, Cassidy's going to be with us for this entire hour, and we're going to be talking about these difficult conversations that we have with our loved ones. So in the meantime, Cassidy, how do we reach you, and where does a good resource for families to go to?
So you can absolutely reach me at myendoflifenorthwest.com. That's my website. And there is a ton of information about end of life doulas, advanced care planning, all of the things that we need to do. There's also a
Mhm.
calendar of death positive events. We have
Mhm.
Death Cafe coming up. You can find us on Facebook at My End of Life
Wow.
Northwest. So yeah, that's how you can find us. My
Well, this is fabulous. And Cassidy, everyone, we're going to be talking about this process of how do you help a loved one go through the process of until they take their last breath. And this is an important process and conversation for all of us. And Cassidy will be right back, everyone, right after this. We at Answers for Elders thank you for listening. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.